G'day, guys. Happy new trading week to you all, and happy new week. It's almost happy new month. I guess since we saw you last, it's happy new month. We're into February, month 2 of 2019, and got no idea where the first one went, but it's gone, and we can't get it back. So let's look forward and not over our shoulders. First thing we're going to do today is, as usual, have a look at what's upcoming in news events over the course of the week. You will note, of course, that there's Chinese bank holidays. Of course, we're celebrating Chinese New Year. It's the year of the pig, I believe, if that serves me correctly. If you are celebrating Chinese New Year, happy Chinese New Year for you. I hope you enjoy the celebrations. What have we got today? Nothing really. Well, when I say nothing, Aussie building approvals came out earlier today. Bad miss according to forecast, but a little bit better than previous. So, well, the Aussie started a little bit of a rally, a decline on the back of that news. I was expecting a further decline, and I'll go into that a little bit later as a result of banking Royal Commission, which the findings of which were released today, only a couple of hours ago, in fact. I'll talk about that a little bit more as we do the show. Speaking of Aussie, we've got retail sales and their interest rate statement coming out tomorrow. No press conference associated with that. I think they defer that to later these days for some reason. We will be checking in on that. Is it later this week? No, it doesn't look like it. Anyway, that announcement, as usual, will be made first Tuesday of the month always, and expected to remain static at 1.50 percentage points. Other than that, it's a bit like RBA all week. Well, not so much all week. We've got Lowe speaking tomorrow. We've got employment figures from the Kiwi coming out on Wednesday. That's on Wednesday, sorry, not tomorrow. What else we got going on? Kiwi's got some employment figures coming out, a few speeches, and of course the big event of the week, I suppose, in many people's eyes, will be the MPC bank rates coming in. And as you can see here, nobody's got any intentions of moving on interest rates in Great Britain at this point in time. You know, the wonderful thing I don't see here at the moment is anything that's got Brexit in front of it. That's pretty cool. Also, employment figures coming out on the CAD on Friday. Speaking of Friday, let's just turn the clock back a little bit to last Friday and see exactly what the Fed did. Not the Fed, that was on Wednesday or Thursday. The Fed did nothing, of course. Non-farm payroll, that's the number that I'm looking for. 304,000, that's a pretty big number for NFP. Normally looking around about 200,000, I think is considered to be par for that. So way above par or below par if you're a golfer, I suppose. It's a bit of a birdie, really. And interestingly, the wages were down substantially on the previous and also on forecast. A big miss there on wages. That won't please the market, one wouldn't think. So a bit of a balance taking place there. And the unemployment rate, of course, also went up. One would have to say off a very low figure, of course, but it has crept up to the 4% mark. So not great news there. The only standout figure, of course, being the employment change itself, 304,000 jobs created. And I guess the ISM manufacturing PMI was a decent number as well. So on balance, you would expect not a whole lot of change. And during this week, there's not a whole lot happening apart from the pound, Aussie interest rates, and a few other scatterings throughout there. And of course, as I said, it is Chinese New Year. So let's turn to the markets, shall we, and see what everybody is thinking at the moment, what the market sentiment is. Let me change that to 12 hours, which gives us an indication of roughly what's happened since the markets opened this morning. A little bit less than that, but we'll give that one a burl. And that's going to be exactly the same as the weekend figures. We'll have a look at the last, let's say the last 6 hours and see what the Asia session has produced. Okay, pretty much on par with the daily figures. I guess, as you would probably conclude, not a whole lot happened until that first news announcement, which was the Aussie news out earlier. I'm trying to get a line across anything here. You're probably seeing the dollar going along quite nicely, according to this. Pounds on fire against the yen. Aussie's up against the yen. Dollar's up against the yen. So we're getting a weak yen. That would suggest to me that there may be a little bit of a risk on attitude as we go into this week. Let us see and investigate and interrogate the charts and see if we can find some trades to take. Ash, you with us yet? Not quite. Okay. Ash will be with us very, very shortly. Okay, I'm going to have a look at the majors that I trade, which is the Aussie, the pound, and the euro, and see if I can come to any conclusion as to which way I want to go this week. When I see that chart, that being the daily chart, the first thing I look at is this range that we're in and have been since September, in my humble opinion. So the boundaries of that are around about the 73 mark and around about 70-40, let's say 70-50 mark. So 70-50 to 73 is where we found the Aussie since September. And a bit of a false break to the top side, big false break to the bottom side. That was a very emotive mood on the back of something that was ridiculous, in my humble opinion. And I can't even remember what it was now. But what I'm seeing here is we've now come back to the top of this range. There may be one more push here. And you can see the level that we're at. It's been support, 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 resistance, 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 broke of resistance. We're back there again. Or are we back there? And that's the question. Had the tail of this candle been above that range, I would have been far more confident that we're going down on the Aussie. But I think my trajectory today, and maybe even only today, will be to trade back to this region. I think there's probably one more push left in this before it does go. And if we get a lower high here, lower than this one, then I'll probably change tack. But if I can trade from, well, let's say the weekly pivot up to here somewhere and get profit off the table or something in the bank, as though there's no risk taken above this level, that's exactly what I'll be trying to do. So I'll be drilling down into the 4 hour and 30-minute chart in order to affect that. Let me see what H4 is telling me. That line there is probably no longer useful to me. We'll get rid of it. Yeah, maybe we've already had the lower high, but I'd still be expecting a bounce here, maybe back to the daily pivot. So that's probably my first play that I'm looking for on the 30-minute chart. Maybe I don't see any reward to be gained in trading this bar on the 4 hour chart. Maybe we get through the daily pivot, maybe we don't. So I'm happy to trade to the daily pivot, and there's no reward on offer if we're going to trade this bar here. So I'll look to drill that down to the 30-minute chart and see what we can find. Well, we can see a head and shoulders. We can see a bearish engulfing bar, lower high, clean out high, maybe a clean out high. That's taking some stops, one would have thought, down to the weekly pivot, and maybe a bounce up to the daily pivot. Yeah, look, I think that's my play for the day. I'll need some help with some support and resistance. Let me go to that. We'll use that as resistance. We'll use that as support. So we're looking for a false break of the bottom of this as our best entry to trade to the daily pivot. If we don't get that opportunity and we simply break here and retest the weekly pivot and the trend line, I think I'll probably change polarity and go with what I'm seeing. And I'm seeing this reversal pattern. I'm seeing this lower high, seeing this starting to get lower highs and lower lows. So that may be the case. I would prefer not to trade the break of this resistance. So I'm really looking to trade a false break in this area, long to the daily pivot, game over. Don't want to go through there. What sort of reward would be on offer there? Say we entered around here somewhere. Yeah, if we got about a 10 pip candle, 12 pip candle, we could get into the 2 to 1 range. That would be okay. I'll be happy with that. So keeping my eye on Aussie US dollar for a short-term long, but it's only very short-term. I'm only going to trade this to there, and as I say, game over. I don't know that the Aussie's got much strength in it at the moment, and we are at that resistance level. So that's my play on the Aussie. As I said, polarity can change quickly if this support level goes, and it looks like going. So we'll keep our eye on that. Cable looks very, very similar to the Aussie in that we're very, very near to this resistance level. It's representative of around about 132.70, something like that, if I recall. 132.60-ish in this area. So we haven't quite reached that. I was looking for a major pullback on this cross, maybe down to the monthly pivot, which of course has now moved. I still think the monthly pivot's a good level in concert with around about 129.38, that level there that we're sitting on. So if we could find a way down here, then I might look to join in everybody else who's bullish this cross or has been for some time now. Everyone's waiting to get in long here. Well, I think everyone's still waiting. I don't see any reason why I shouldn't be. Although, as I say, strange things can happen, and it only takes a Brexit move to change this. And we need to be aware of that, of course. But I'll be looking for maybe some continued downside. So that's my bias today. Am I willing to jump into this short? Well, yeah, why not? I've just got to find a reason, that's all. And that reason could come with, I don't really like the first move here. It's not a very strong reversal signal. You could call this a double top and I'd be okay with that. And then we've got a lower high. I'm okay with that. So similar to the Aussie, If we can find something to bounce off here, then I think this is probably a good play down to the monthly pivot to get that reasonable, if not deeper, retracement on this bull move that we've had since the beginning of the year. So, do I play this long at the moment? Oh, look, I'm happy to if it gives me the signal, but really my mind is this way. I'm really thinking I need that pullback. Let me see what the 30-minute chart says. I'd probably be happy to play to the weekly pivot, but it'd want to be a gilt-edged. It'd want to be a gilt-edged entry, and just like the Aussie, this is very, very similar. We've got this line here as support. We've got this line here as resistance. And I'll be looking to play a false break off either of these. The best case scenario for me is this: break short, find support, maybe this level here, then get back above the level, retest it, and go long to the weekly pivot and close up shop. Do nothing more. And then potentially looking for a short at that point. The other way to play it is exactly the opposite of that. Break, find resistance, maybe this level through here. Get back underneath the levels, retest them, and then go short. So there's the pound and there's the Aussie wrapped up. Don't need to do too much more work on that until it happens. I can hear Ash rustling in the background. G'day, mate.
Hi, mate. How you doing? All right?
Oh, look. Hang on. Let me... yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Nothing
well, that's a good sign, mate. That's a good sign.
Oh, look, it's better than the alternative, isn't it? Absolutely.
Oh, always. Weekend, mate? Oh, it was really good. Actually, it was a really good weekend. It was the weather here was absolutely gorgeous. It was obviously cold. We are into winter, but so sunny. And this is the thing about UK weather, where I'm not sure whether everybody fully gets it, because everybody just thinks that when it's bad, it's just raining. And when it's cold, it's raining. But actually, it's not like that. When it's cold, oftentimes it's really sunny, and I really like that. That's the kind of season. That's the kind of seasonal start I really like. You know, if the weather is cold, but there's blue skies and you can actually feel the sun in areas, then I really appreciate that kind of day. And that's what we've had the whole weekend. It's been absolutely beautiful. But today it is back to wet. But where I live, we don't tend to get so much snow. We get a little bit of snow, but it won't really settle and disrupt. So there's some parts of the country that,
isn't there, as I've seen on the news reports.
Yeah, some parts of the country are absolutely abysmal. And if you go over to America, in Chicago, I mean, to advise people not to breathe too heavily in case their lungs froze. I mean, I've never heard anything like that in my life. I don't know whether that is a regular occurrence in Chicago during this time of the year, but that is pretty extreme. That's pretty extreme advice for pretty extreme weather.
Come to Chicago, but don't bring your lungs with you.
yeah, and Niagara as well.
Light of that, and I shouldn't, but yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, and as I say, Niagara Falls as well. What a beautiful but amazingly absurd picture that is, to get a waterfall with that much power freezing over. It is really frozen. Yeah, I mean, you see some of the pictures of it. It's complete. I mean, I don't know where it freezes from. Does it freeze from the bottom or freeze from the top and slowly drip down? I don't know.
That's a question for a scientist, mate. I'm not
I mean, it can't just go all of a sudden. I suppose you.
Well, not unless, what is that Batman character, Mr. Freeze or something?
Oh yeah, well, I think Mr. Freeze was having
he
was having an absolute field day. But yeah, all in all, very good. And obviously we had the Super Bowl last night.
Oh yeah, Tom gone home again, number 6.
Tom, yeah, he's managed to get himself home. Quite a disappointing game, if I'm honest. And you'd think that was the thing that kept me up in the night, but in the end it wasn't. I had a very disruptive little character who just couldn't sleep, and I was sitting in there with and her mum was going, "You've got to come out the room." And I was like, "She just can't sleep." And the last thing you want to do when you're probably 2.5 is sit in a room on your own looking at the ceiling. So I went in there. I was juggling. I was telling her jokes.
Watch the Super Bowl, I suppose.
Yeah, that's what I should have done. That's what I should have done. And to be fair, she probably would have gone to sleep the way it was last night.
It was not a lot happening in the first half, that's for sure.
No, do you know what? Not until the fourth quarter, and in fact, not until the second half of the first quarter, we get the first touchdown. It was a couple of field goals, and then eventually, one touchdown. Yeah, one touchdown. So it was, and the Rams just couldn't get it together. I mean, I was rooting for your team, mate. I was rooting for them because they were your team.
I didn't have my jumper on, but yeah, I was outside working. And I only came in for the fourth quarter.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you saw the good bit.
Pretty much.
Yeah. They just couldn't get it together.
Another year? No, they couldn't.
Yes. Let's hope that we get maybe two different teams in it next year, because I don't mind a bit of defense, but not that much. I like to see a few breaks and a little bit of even matchup going on as well. But yeah, as you say, done for another year, and back to the markets. I guess I drag myself today.
Yeah, I've had a look at the Aussie and the pound.
Yeah,
a couple of prospects there. I've got a couple of ideas, but nothing there to do at the moment. How about you?
Yeah, well, do you know what? Because I was up, a ridiculous o'clock last night, I managed to get a look at the markets a little bit. Obviously, the FTSE futures don't really open till 3 a.m. my time, which is 6 hours back. But I was looking at the pound, the euro, and I did see a setup, but I didn't really fancy it. That some of the issue is that when I look at some of these charts, that they just look a little bit slow moving. I'll show you the very, very small setup that there was with the pound, but it's just very, very slow moving, and I suspect that is going to be us today. I don't, for me anyway. I don't think there's going to be too much prospect of actually getting a trade on. Certainly not in the morning session, and I'll go through some of the reasons and the fundamental aspects of this in a moment. But this is the euro pound. Let's make sure my screen is shared here.
Oh, I forgot to say, I took the trailing stop's been hit on the Aussie, by the way. Those of you who are interested, I'll show you that when we get back. When I get back to my screen.
Yeah, great stuff, mate. You need 10 minutes. Do you want me to wrap this in 10 so you've got new candles?
Oh, if you like, mate.
Yep. Okay. Cool. So this was. I mean, this let's say there's not really a lot to discuss. The only thing I liked about this is that we were kind of starting to move to the downside in a kind of almost. I mean, it's a difficult pattern to ascertain. Is it a triangle like this, where you get a break and we start to get in the back test, which is really what I was seeing. That's kind of the pattern here that we're getting this triangle. But if we look at this triangle and we go down to the classic measuring techniques of something like this, then you basically don't have much of a move at all. That's the measured move. We take from the top of the triangle to the widest point at the bottom of the triangle, and all we really get is a move that's going to end somewhere around about here. So there's not really a lot in that, and obviously, figuring out where you're going to put your stop is not going to be the easiest thing either. I don't know why my mouse is playing up in the last few weeks. 20 pips, and you got to stop almost the same. Might have to go right to the top, but a 1-to-1, and it was just, it's not great. I mean, obviously the pattern can start to change as well when you break the first pattern, and you start to get something along the lines that would do this. I'm gonna have to put the ray back on. You ever get this problem with your mouse where it just stops grabbing? There we go.
Yeah, that has happened to me. I change batteries normally, if that's the case.
Ah, okay. Not sure if this is Battery powered or not? No. Yeah. So we may be looking a little bit further down. You know, maybe along this horizontal level, which probably would make it a better trade. But the issue again was that we were into Asian territory, Asian session, and we've got to consider drivers. I did have a trade on the FTSE on Friday. As you know, Fridays have been pretty lucrative recently for the FTSE. Interestingly, I was on the wrong side of it until this happened here. So I was looking for downside on the FTSE, and I think I sold. I sold in this area here, so I saw this kind of come up, come back down again. It didn't manage to break through this level here on the hourly chart. Saw some of these bars, so I sold it off. I was entered in, and then the trade took off, and I took a hedge up here. So I went long at the break of this line up here. It came up and came all the way back down again. So I was in one short and one long, with neither of them working out. But then, fortunately, I saw this bar here, and because that bar, you know, I could ignore this particular bar, but that bar was suggesting that we were probably in some sort of channel here, some sort of pattern. Maybe it was using that line as well. So I managed to get on the trade to the upside there, and that negated the downside move. I probably could have got away with taking the downside off, but I didn't do that. And all that ended up happening was that I made money, but a very, very small. I think I made 0.5%, which could have been a 2%. But there's always a question for me about taking off the original trade to the downside, because it almost then acts as just a half a hedge. You know, if I'm in two longs here and I take off my short, I've got no protection. Whereas if I leave the short in the market, then it acts as a hedge just in case it breaks down, and then I can obviously add to it again. So it starts to become a little bit a little bit of a question of you know, how to manage it aggressively or more conservatively, and I chose the more conservative option, which I don't regret. I mean, you know, I think all in all, it's probably better to go down that line. I think obviously you're not going to make as much money, but that little bit of protection probably will counter some of the really bad moves if things, you know, don't really start to pick up in the same direction as the second trade. You know, if I'd got out of the short here and then it just collapsed, I would have been in a bit of trouble. Yeah, and I would have been a bit of trouble, because where do I hedge again after that? You know, it starts to waterfall down. Then I've got to get on a trade to cover these two at a worse price, because this one was pretty much at the same price as the new entry. So it was okay anyway. So it's all worked out. Now, what to do from here on in? Really, we are looking for the long from here. So if we bring up a daily chart now, we are looking for the long, and the FTSE, we are going to be looking overall for the shorts. But as I was saying, I think last week, there's a wider pattern here, and the wider pattern is an inverted head and shoulders on a longer term time frame. So we're really looking for the market to eventually come back down and pretty much test what we've got right now. This is what I see that could be a potential unfold, where the area we're in is kind of a head, and the area that we might get to is going to be a right shoulder. Now, for that to happen, that means we pop up. You know, we got to pop up first, and that is what I'm probably going to be looking for now. Just a pop forward, and then we start to look for shorts in this area. So then a pop back down again. Now at this point, it's anybody's guess, because obviously, you know, technically speaking, we want to pop forward and a pop down again. Now I don't like to try and assume what would happen here, because if I was to do that, then the assumption straight away would be that we test the neckline and then possibly beyond. So we're almost looking for 4 moves, but that's a long way out. And because the technical patterns are based on fundamental aspects and based on fundamental reasons, then I think to try and assume what may happen in the future just because of a price pattern I think it's kind of dangerous. So I won't be doing that. I think I'd like to see this pop forward, and I'll explain why. I think after you've done your candles, but I'll explain why I believe that the fundamental aspects of the markets, what's really driving the markets, would probably more likely see us move here before possibly breaking out and not forming the inverted head and shoulders, or then we start to look to see if there's downside. So I'm really looking for the next move up and then assuming what could happen next. But yeah, we'll as I say, we'll talk about it in a moment, about why I think that the near term move is probably up on a fundamental level, and we will come back to it. And we're going to have to talk pound, because there's been a little bit of news over the weekend which is going to be kind of dangerous for the UK, and maybe it's the first sign that that we're getting that business is just lost its patience. You may know about it already.
Is this the B word related?
Yes, it is. It is to do with Brexit, and it's to do with Nissan. So we'll come back and discuss that. Yeah, which is kind of worrying. But yeah, let's have a look at any candles, mate, that are closing up, and we'll come back to talking about Nissan, and we will talk about the near-term fundamentals on the FTSE and why I think we're looking for a long, and because of that, where we could potentially look for a long position, and in which area.
Okay, happy days. I'll go back to this Aussie, and you'll recall we traded this breakout here. Or was it this breakout here? Same area. I can't remember which. It was this one. Okay, so we traded this breakout, and we then trailed our stops after we got to here. We're trailing 2 candles, and we eventually got stopped out when the market came back to this level. So we got taken out here. So far, that looks to be a reasonable thing. As I say, I'm still looking for maybe a daily pivot test today, and then a short. So with that in mind, let's go to the 30-minute candles and look for setup. Well, there's nothing there I like right now, but stay tuned, because if this is a bearish decisive bar, I think I might like it. So we'll come back to that. Let's see what sort of rewards on offer here. So we got in around about this level. There's only 15 pips. Maybe if we can get something like a 10 pip candle, I get 1.5 to 1, might be okay. We'll judge that one when it's and if it forms, of course, but nothing to do there right now. Now, cable has broken resistance and the daily pivot. In fact, now my analysis was this, that I wanted price to get down to here, then get up to here, retest these levels, then play to the weekly pivot. Makes it a little bit tough now to just jump in here and trade it to the weekly pivot. So I'll just wait till this settles down. If it gets to the weekly pivot, then I'll reassess the whole situation. I was looking for a short off the weekly pivot. I'm actually not sure where that's going to come from, to be fair, because I don't see any great confluence area. Oh, maybe I do. Maybe there's something through here that I can look at. That looks better. Okay, so if we get up to here, then I'll look for the bounce short, but nothing there at this moment. Euro, you'll recall that very, very similar, or actually we didn't talk about the euro, but it is very, very similar in that, actually it's not. It's actually not. I wouldn't mind being on the downside of this right now, but I wouldn't like to be trading through the monthly pivot either. So yeah, we've kind of got to wait here and see what happens. If we were to get back up here, then I'd probably be looking for a bounce short. Don't really like the chart. I do like the fact that we're definitely looking at a turnaround here. So bearish engulfing bar, head and shoulders if you like, definite lower high. But this is a bit messy through here. me see if I've got anything to work with. I'm either looking for a channel or a rectangle, but I don't really see either at this point. Yeah, I'm not that fussed, to be fair, on the euro. Let me get something off these pivots, and then I can look to do at least a directional bias. But I think my directional bias is similar to the pound and the Aussie at the moment. Get up to these levels, find the resistance, and go short. I think that's the caper I'm in at this point. Although there are many ways to look at it, at that chart in particular. Aussie, and I'm a little, well, the yen's weak. We discovered that when we had a look at the Forex Factory, and for the life of me, I can't work out why the Aussie's strong at the moment. I was expecting that, or certainly against the yen, it's strong, but it's actually rallying a few pips. It's not massive, of course, but on the back of the news today, I would have thought we might have seen some downside in the Aussie. In particular, there was and this is not in any news events that I'm aware of, but there was a banking royal commission in Australia, has been for the last, goodness me, 6 months or more. And the findings by the Royal Commissioner were released at 4 p.m. local time, which was 3 hours ago. And 1, 2, 3, it's done absolutely nothing to the market. I thought it might have, because it's a very damning report. I haven't read it. It's about 4 million pages long, but it does nothing for the banking sector, I can assure you. And I think if you trade Aussie banks on the Aussie Stock Exchange, you would have seen them tumbling in the last few days in anticipation of this release, but done nothing to the currency, or certainly nothing that I can see, and that continues to be the case. I tried to sneak a little Euro Aussie long on the back of that today, and I got first take profit, but I've trailed my stops too tight, and I'm out of that now. But the 30-minute chart on this one is looking very much like it wants to have a look at this high, and if that's the case, good. We might be able to find something off the top there. Certainly won't be looking to go long at this point until there is some retracement. I don't want to go long into this resistance, so I need price to get back down here somewhere. If we can trade it back down there, maybe a little bit later on, but not now. Euro pound, this is the one Ash was having a look at. Let me see here. Big candles. There's been some decent moves on this, that's for sure. I don't know that we've had the retracement that is. So I don't see this level. I don't see this as being a level. Let me put a line in there and see if I can follow it. It's got a bit of form, but only in consolidation. It hasn't really moved the market, except there. Yeah, I'd say it's resistance, but only mediocre resistance. I think this one's too tough to call for me at this point in time. That's definitely a big rejection of that level. There's no question, but maybe the monthly pivot, just maybe. I'm not seeing anything there. I don't have a directional bias, so I won't be trading it. Euro CAD. We traded this last week, didn't we? Can't remember. We traded up to here. That's right. I can't remember what the result of that was, to be fair. I'll have to have a look. Now we find ourselves trying to form a base on the 30-minute chart. We've got an untested daily pivot above. The only play I'd really like to take, I think, is this one. I don't want this candle to close above this line. I want to wait for just a little bit more consolidation after the break, and then we can look to trade it maybe as a false break of that line at some stage. Testing the daily pivot, that would be okay by me. And we can probably look to put 25, 26 pips in the bank. If we get about a 12 pip risk, that will be perfectly fine. So long to the daily pivot would be a short-term trade for me, but there's nothing there yet. Euro Aussie, this is the one I did trade earlier in the day. I took profit here, of course, but I was hoping for this level to hold, and it didn't. So I had my stop under here, and that's now gone. Would I be looking to get back into this? Yes, I would. A few reasons. Let me go a little bit wider. This range that we've broken has now been re-entered. So if this weekly pivot can go as resistance, so it fails as resistance, I could look for a higher low here. We've already got one on the back of a bullish engulfing bar, so this is most definitely not the worst. There's no doubt about that. Untested daily pivot worries me a little bit. Maybe we can get another higher low here and we can play it off the daily pivot bounce. That's probably what I'll be looking for. You can see what the weekly pivot's done already. It's formed and acted as resistance. Whether it's going to be strong enough to put it back to the daily pivot is the question. Let me see if I can work out a way to trade that. Nice little double hit at the weekly pivots. Yeah, maybe there's a way here. It's a big ask. Let me see what that candle closes as. And I'll make a decision on that. But that's right up there, Euro Aussie. We'll have a good look at that. Aussie CAD. I don't see anything here that I like. I don't have a reversal bar. I don't have a higher low, so I wouldn't be looking to trade it long at this point. Maybe we can look for a base, double bottom, something like that, then a higher low. Nothing there for me at the moment. Pound yen, let me look at that 30-minute candle. Well, that's in a great place. That's probably the best I've seen today in terms of location. And that's why, because we've hit the top of this channel and looking full of running actually. But the way I would like to play this is as a pullback. So I'd like to see a retracement leg here, maybe back to the weekly pivot, maybe back to the daily pivot. How's that looking on a 30-minute basis? Not good, I'd have to say, because I really don't have a nice trend line from which to launch an attack. This one's on a 4-hour chart, that's fine. I could find something on a 4-hour chart, but the 30-minute chart, I need something to play off, some form of confluence, but it's not there at the moment. So nothing there on pound yen. I'll just do two more and then we'll go back to a bit of conversation. This is Euro yen. Let me go back to the daily chart, see where that's headed. Has it broken this level? Yeah, it has. Okay, so that's looking really strong as a break of this transition period, if you like, which was obviously consolidation. We've broken out, we've retested it, and now we've got a very strong bar on Friday. I don't know what that was about. Euro yen. What was the yen weakening? We'll go to that in a minute. But it seems that we're risk on here. It looks that way to me. So the euro, yeah, okay. Seeing the opening candles not doing any favors to the yen at all. What's the dollar yen look like? Same. Yeah, okay. It's going to be tough to catch now. Taking out the high. Looking like if you're not in, you're not in on this one against the yen, and the dollar may be the same. That's the 30-minute chart. Now, where are we? Oh, well, I've still got that range there. I have. It's only had one break, that's why. about there somewhere. So we're right at the top of that range. We're back to this former resistance level, former support level almost as well, and the whole figure 110. So I'll be looking for this to bounce and bounce back towards my pivots. Let me think short dollar yen. Okay, so what we're looking for here, again, as usual, is confluence. Yeah, the 30-minute chart, there's a big gap here. I don't like big gaps between tests of lines, but there it is. So if we get more action here, especially off the top of here, off the top of this range, get back to here, maybe even underneath this line, and then a retest and a lower high of something of that nature. I think that's probably a reasonable trade down to the pivots. But with 17 minutes to go in this candle, there won't be a trade-off there. There may be a trade-off a couple of the others, but no, nothing yet, mate.
Nothing that we can see. Nothing we can see yet.
A few opportunities later, but I don't see anything off these candles. Maybe
yeah.
Two.
I agree with you. I mean, I've seen the market. The market is now opened, and price action is pretty sluggish. It has to be said so far. Coming back to the screen here, and I'll talk about my plan. I've just sent out a message to the Telegram group, just talking about the plan, and we'll discuss it here. But this is what I'd like to see, as I say. Now let's first talk about the FTSE. I mean, the Nissan news will affect the FTSE as well. The growth we know in Asia has been a little bit tepid. We're seeing China probably growing around about 6%, which sounds a bit strange to say that is tepid growth when most other markets will, we're probably going to see something like 2% from the States, and maybe 7%, actually as high as 7% in India. So to say that it's tepid growth it sounds strange, but it's all relative, and I think it's come off around about 0.5%. So we're seeing just that little slowdown in China. We've seen the States also slow down a little bit, but it's still pretty robust. But the big problem is Europe. We are seeing some slow growth in Europe, which is one of the reasons I'm bearish the euro. And the FTSE continues to weigh heavy because it's so closely linked, obviously, with world trade and Europe, and it is also affected by Brexit. Now, the reason that I think we're probably likely to get a little bit of a boost to the upside before moving to the downside is because Xi Jinping and Donald Trump's trade talks seem to have gone fairly well, and they look like it seems like that they'll be looking to meet sometime in February, sometime at the end of February, I should say, to see if they can sort out the trade wars a little further.
What's that date?
I think it's the
20th. I can't remember.
22nd, or is it 22nd or 23rd? It's sometime around there. I'm not exactly sure, but it's sometime in the mid-20s. Sometime in so I'd say in the mid-20s. So the end of February, basically. It looks like the last week of February. And it could be that the last week in February is when we get our boost. We're only on the 4th right now, but at least we get something to look forward to. And that's what I will look to do. I'll look to trade this up to around about the end of February and then start to look for the shorts, But signs and signals for the shorts is the key here, because realistically, we can't really look for a short in the market without some other reason. And that would suggest, if it's to do with trade talks, that those trade talks would somehow flare up again or something. But we certainly would be looking for the longs up until that point, and it might be a wall of worry that we climb. It could be that we start getting some further data points which suggest some downside, but at least up until that point, I think maybe some of the data points, if they're not too extreme, will probably be pushed to one side. So for that reason, I will be looking to see whether there's opportunities to the upside. Now, the market has had an incredible run, really. When you think that this is day 1, day 2, day 3, and day 4, now we're into day 5 of what could look like a pretty healthy run to the upside, and it's managed to engulf the move to the downside that we saw towards the end of January. So we're really starting to pick up a little bit of pace, but the market has probably gone a little bit too high, a little bit too fast. So I'd like to see a decent retracement. Now there is a pivot sat back down around 68.70, which is there. 60. Oh, sorry, this is the wrong chart. Oh, what I want is this. I'm just coming into the futures here. 68.70 is around about there. So a dip into that area is going to suggest that maybe we start to see this trend line attempting to be held. This trend line here is going to be far too long. So I think we go forward before we see this trend line again later in the month, which that starts to suggest the end of February actually, which is interesting because that's going to be around about the time that we get that that meeting. So maybe we do meander for a little while until we start to boost forward. But let's see. It might be that the market comes up in anticipation of the meeting. We come back down again, and then possibly we start to build up. So maybe we could start to think about the inverted head and shoulders bounce 3 times if those time frame correlations happen. So if we are oversold, sorry, if we are overbought on the 4-hour, what are we looking for here? Well, this particular trend, the structure of this trend is going to be in this area here, which is going to be something like 50 odd pips to the downside before moving forward. And if it comes down one more and breaks this level, then the short is on the table straight away. But that's not what I'll look for. So I'm really going to look for a long in this area. And then I'll look for a long in this area. This area is the ideal because this is where the weekly pivot sits. So there's some confluence in this area. It looks like we get a pullback to a trend line. Looks like we get some sort of horizontal break as well at that particular price. So 68.70 is around about 90 pips to the downside. It's going to be slightly different on people's UK 100 chart, but on your UK 100 chart, you're really looking for a dip of about 90 pips or a dip of about 55 pips. So 55 is the first point of call, looking for signs and signals of upside, or the 90 is the second point of call. Now, we've covered before, I know you've asked me before about why not go short if that's the assumption that we're going to go to the downside first. Yep. And I would never be adverse to that. I'm happy to go and look for shorts in this area, but they do tend to be obviously a lot trickier. And it would suggest that the market is going to take a I guess an intraday, a longer term intraday dip to the downside, and we're starting to see just a little bit of weakness here, but it's going to fight at this level, and it's going to fight at this level, and it's going to fight at this level, and it's going to fight at this level. So because the fight is really for the bulls, where are the bulls going to get in? The short just starts to lose all romance for me. It's not that I'm against it, but I'm going to have to see something really positive that would suggest that short would actually start to take place. And I've just seen as well that we also have this. So there's plenty of options and opportunities to look for the long. But that's, I think, where we should put our focus. Let's look for the long rather than trying to trade it against the momentum, and what could potentially also be against the fundamental momentum. Now, so that covers hopefully the FTSE. So we're ultimately looking for long in the near term, and we are looking for short intraday, but long in the swing near term, I'd say. Now to the pound.
Just before you do, mate,
yes,
I had to tune out when you were talking about Nissan. What was the detail there again?
Sorry? Yes, so this is where we're now going to relate to the pound. So the Nissan situation is that Nissan make the most the best sold crossover car in Europe, the Qashqai, and the factory is based in the north of England in a place called Sunderland, and just before Brexit had happened, Nissan were announcing that they would probably have to shift operations, but the government had given them a boost. I think they might have even given them £6 million or something like that. There's a maybe even 60. I'm not sure, but they gave them some assurances about business and to do with Brexit, and I think they might have even given them a cash boost as well. So things were looking okay. But as these negotiations continue, and as they continue to be pretty bungled, I have to say, frustratingly so, the businesses are starting to pull their operations. Dyson have already started to think that they're going to move their main headquarters to Singapore. And now we have Nissan suggesting that their next, I think it's called the X or something like that. I'm not sure what it is, but their new model they're going to be building probably in Japan, which won't necessarily cost jobs, but it won't give them any growth. So it may cost them jobs. The fact that we're not having extra industry over in Sunderland. So that's one aspect of it, that you've got such a huge player citing Brexit and Brexit uncertainty as a reason that they just cannot, they can no longer put their faith in the UK economy. And they basically can't take it anymore. They can't take all the messing about and the mismanagement of this thing, because that's what it is. I think many of us Remainers would probably get behind the Brexiteers if they seem to have a plan, if they seem to have a way through and a way out. But every single thing they seem to come up with, or I should say Theresa May comes up with, seems to be peppered with problems. And I'm not just talking about a light peppering. I'm talking about it's pretty much covered in problems. Particularly when you look at the Irish backstop scenario, which they're now back again talking about this technological solution, which doesn't exist. So they just seem to be plucking ideas out of thin air and hoping that they're going to work and hoping that they're going to get this deal through. And the whole thing sounds to me so irresponsible. And when I think about Theresa May, I don't think of somebody who wants to play chicken with the country because of her own political gain. But I wonder whether she's just so in it and so involved and submerged that she just cannot see, really what's going on. And it just means that,
yes,
yeah, just
blink, because it's so bloody complex now. It's just dragged on, and the only surprise of the Nissan move that you just described to me is that it's taken so long for them to
absolutely.
Make such a move. And
absolutely,
how many others are exactly at that level where they're thinking, "Good God, we're being run by fools." Yeah.
Well, this is the thing. You see, we are starting to see more and more companies and businesses pull out investment from the UK, and investment is down hugely. It'd be interesting to see the next numbers on some of these PMIs for the UK. But the UK economy is bubbling along fairly well. But this is one of those things that down the track you can start to see in 6 months to a year. We're really going to see the effects of this. And considering the way that Brexit seems to be going, I don't see how this is going to be cleaned up, anytime soon. So Nissan have decided to pull their investment. Some of the other companies pulled investment. The UK investment is at a record low as well, and the impasse doesn't seem to be clearing. In actual fact, what's happened recently is that the government has now started to offer the opposition seats and some of the opposition MPs money for their constituencies if they back the May deal, and they're only going for the marginal places. They're not offering it to all seats. They've pinpointed the areas that would be likely to get backing from their constituents, and they've decided that they are going to go and bribe them effectively to back the Theresa May deal. So it's getting fairly ugly and underhand in Parliament, and desperate, I have to say. And I would feel incredibly let down if politicians took a position off the back of a promise of cash. And I think when they talked about not having a referendum because the UK would be democracy would be questioned forever, in the future. This is the kind of thing that Yeah,
tend
yeah,
to,
exactly, mate. Yeah, I would question it from this perspective, not to give it, to give us a second referendum. They say would be constitutionally wrong. Well, I don't see much worse than bribing politicians to vote in a specific way as a risk to democracy and the constitution.
it's
So
rather pathetic,
it,
isn't it, really?
it's got pretty bad, mate. It's got pretty bad. Now, if we bring that back to trading, what that means to me is that the pound's run to the upside is potentially going to be curtailed here. Whether it's aggressive is going to be the question of what happens next, because the some of the Tories are actually encouraging their leader in Theresa May to come and stop backing this no deal Brexit, take no deal off the table. So maybe there'll be enough pressure for her to do that. And obviously that ties her hands. It's a stupid thing to do. But by the same token, she's really tied her own hands with the initial red lines that she drew up. So she's got herself into a corner here, and maybe the only thing that could help the pound is if we start to see no deal coming off the table. And there are calls because of what's happened with Nissan. There are calls by the business secretary specifically for no deal to be taken off the table, because obviously he's very, very concerned that that businesses are going to shape what's going to happen next and start to guide this ship. So it's all a bit messy. It's all a bit messy,
It's
mate.
unbelievable.
And when we look at the markets, this is the pound dollar over the course of a few hours, and it's fairly flat. This is really, today's price action starts just here. This is today's price action, and it opened up here, and we're pretty much here. All these bars here suggest that there is some light volume going on in the markets. There's a little, maybe some institutions going on in here, or maybe this is just the retail traders not really managing to catch anything going on. But this suggests already, when I compare that with this, come over here. This is the FTSE. Same thing. It opens here. When I compare the two, it suggests that that today's volatility is going to be pretty low, and an opportunity is going to be probably fairly light. This may well just continue to ease to the upside, but we can't get in here, so we're looking for a decent dip, and it's just not looking likely today.
I got a trade, mate. So we'll come to me.
Awesome.
It's a preemptor, if you like. You'll recall that I was looking to trade the Aussie to the daily pivot, but I was looking to trade it off a false break of this support line. I'm still looking to do that, but if it goes now before I actually get that opportunity, which it can do, I want to catch it. So I'm going to put an entry above the bar that's just closed, and I'm going to put my stop just below this trend line. It'll be a one-to-one trade, so it's not a great reward on offer here, but let's do it anyway. As I say, it's a preemptor. I may get a better entry than this, so let's put the trade in the market. I'll just go at half a lot. That'll be enough on this, and it'll be a buy stop. And the level will be 72.39. And the stop loss will be 72.24. Well, I'll just type it in. Okay, we'll place that. So we're just looking for a break of this line and testing the daily pivot at the moment. So where will we look to take a bit of profit off the table? Yeah, I don't think we'll bother actually. What we might do is just move our stops to entry when we hit that level. So 72.46. Once you hit there, just move your stops to entry. And if you want to leave something open here, yeah, look, I don't see any reason why you couldn't. I wouldn't want to be trading through that level, however. So 72.75-ish. If you want to leave something open, but I'll be taking probably 3/4 of this off at that level. And as I say, I might leave something open to here. Why not? So 3/4 off there and leave the rest run to this level, then close it. That's what I'll be looking to do. But as I say, there may be a better entry as a result of a potential breakdown here. That's what I'll be looking for. Sorry, mate, I interrupted you. I'll just have a quick look and see if there's anything else.
No, you go ahead, mate.
That's good. If we get back above here, I'll be starting to look for a retest of this trend line. Don't see how I can trade that one at the moment. It's kind of the same as what I'm looking for on the Aussie, but I don't think the reward's anywhere near 1-to-1. No, it's not really. So we'll go with the Aussie rather than Euro Aussie short. That's giving me a nice little starter pack here. Potential double bottom. I'll look for a higher low. Then we might be able to do something off the bottom of this range. That is Aussie CAD. Pound yen, again, I'd like this to hang around here for a little bit at this resistance level, then get underneath there, then retest the confluence area. Then I'd be happy to go short, but not yet. Euro yen's too far gone at the moment. Euro pound, pardon me. A nice retest of the daily pivot. Let's see what happens here. See what the candle does. Aussie yen, look, this is a high risk area here, and I just can't trade it. Can't trade into that. I don't see any way. But that's if this was down here, I'd be really keen to get into this. Maybe we're still looking for that higher low, but this could easily break out. But I'm not going to trade it. Ditto the euro, and pound's looking interesting again. What I was looking for was probably a weekly pivot test. That hasn't happened. Big rejection bar though. They must have been listening to you talk then, Ash, I think. And I'd just like to see this hang on here a little bit, not close below the trend line, then get a close below the trend line, and maybe retest the confluence area. That gets me short. Nothing there at the moment. So it's Aussie and Aussie only right now. Aussie long at, what did I say the level was? 72.39. Let us see. What else is happening around the world, mate? Okay, now we've got a questionable pound because of industrial revolution. Will we get to that? Maybe we will. Who knows? We've got pound interest rates later in the week, haven't we? I think yes, we do.
Yeah. So we do need to get to that. We need to have a look. Yes. Yeah. So let's have a look. We've basically got just quickly the update on that. A couple of updates actually. The first update is that the date for the Trump and Xi Jinping meeting is the 27th and 28th.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, this is planned rather than scheduled. The plan is for that to happen. So I guess this is where we could start to see a little bit of volatility in the market. I think also Jerome Powell's, dovish stance as well that does tend to help the markets out. So if we're looking for reasons to be cheerful, then we probably have at least two. We're looking for a third to complete the song. But right now we've got two reasons. So the Xi Jinping and Donald Trump meeting scheduled, and also the dovish stance from the Fed, which is kind of a wait and see stance, I guess, rather than dovish per se. So we are looking for, I think, the markets to continue to be buoyed, and so far we certainly do have some buyers out there. The markets are holding steady, but I think it's important that we do check the Forex Factory. So I will quickly bring that up, and we'll discuss some of the near-term data, or certainly the data for the week. The market will give us something. Oh, I mean, this is why, isn't it? Look at that Chinese bank holiday. Didn't even know that, mate.
It's Chinese New Year, mate.
Of course it is. Of course it is. I don't know why I thought that was the 7th, but yeah. So Chinese New Year today. So the bank holiday in China. That's going to put quite a few brakes on any volatility, I would suggest. So we're probably going to be at pains to find something. I would thought today. Spanish unemployment change is unbelievably high. Unbelievably high. Now, why do these swing around so much? That's quite a swing, isn't it? Previous at minus 50.
Is it normal for that to change? So markedly, what's the chart doing? Yeah.
Let's have a look. No, it is actually.
Yeah, it's a bit of a swinger, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. So that's probably why that gets yellow. There's a yellow folder. You can't read anything from that. Construction PMI. I would have thought that'd be a little bit more important than yellow. But that's due to shrink in the UK. That could put the brakes on the pound somewhat, but it doesn't look like there's anything significant here. So today's price action is probably going to be pretty weak and tepid. Chinese bank holiday tomorrow. When is it? Is it New Year today or all week? Okay.
All week, yeah. It's a week-long celebration. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that might make trading difficult all round. We'll see. Retail sales from Australia and the RBA rate statement from Australia. So what are we saying about this? You being on that side of the world, is this likely to shift anything around at all?
Oh, no, I think there'll be very much a cut and paste. I don't think anything's happened in the Australian economy. They'll focus on housing. Housing is coming off in all the major cities except for beautiful Hobart in Tasmania, and they'll be. I guess the statement will say we'll be keeping a very close eye on that. It'll be interesting to see what happens if they try and stimulate that down the track. But it will be interesting because there may well be pressure on interest rates to go down rather than up, which, they've always, well, when I say always, they've said repeatedly that there's not going to be any 2019, well, very unlikely there's going to be 2019 interest rate hikes. And maybe no changes till 2020. But it'll be interesting to see what this housing situation does, as if that continues to tumble. I think it's down. They're looking at 20%, I think. That's a pretty big correction, of course.
Yes.
But it needed to happen because it's just been red hot, absolutely red hot. Foreign investment.
Well, that is interesting. I mean, geez, a dip in there would see some movement.
The what? Sorry.
If there's a dip in the RBA, in the cash rate, there's going to be some movement, and I would have thought pretty vicious too, right?
Yeah, it'll sell off big time. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen tomorrow. That's for sure. But there may be undertones within the statement that says, we may be accommodative to. I won't say prop the housing industry up, or not the housing industry as such, the the what's the word I'm looking for? Residential property.
Mm-hmm.
More than anything.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Okay, so then we have ISM non-manufacturing PMI from the States, which looks like it's going to shrink just a little bit. Still pretty good numbers. RBA Governor Lowe speaking. This is going to make the Aussie quite a tricky trade, isn't it, this week?
Yeah, it is.
With speeches and and actual data points. Then we get some interesting news from New Zealand. It seems to be all happening on your side of the world today for this
down
week
in
so
the
far.
Antipodes, mate.
Yeah, down in the Antipodes, it seems. Then we get FEMA. Now, this could be a driver. The Chairman Powell speaking could be a driver. I'm not sure what he's due to speak about, but audience questions are expected. So this could well be a driver, because we know that that Jerome Powell has come out and effectively said that he will be in wait and see mode rather than just raising interest rates on the plan. So it's sort of, you know, it kind of makes the Fed in a position where they are going to be a little bit tricky to read. You know, what's going to happen next? I don't think anybody's got a really good handle on that, and that suggests to me that we could maybe start to see a bit more weakness in the dollar. Now, I'm not particularly bullish on the euro because of the data that's really been released on the euro. However, if we have to go to the most traded currency, then we're going to go euro dollar, and if we're starting to see just a little bit of pullback from the Fed chairman, then it would suggest that maybe we see some upside in some of these other markets, and the euro could actually get swept along with that as well. So I'm not sure what your position is on the euro right now, but I would find it a little bit. Are you bearish?
I'm still a bull. And
you're a bull, okay.
The reason is the technicals are telling me that.
Yes.
We put in a lower low, which has broken the daily sequence. But that was, I can't remember the news even. Again, that was an emotive move that took it down to just below that low, the previous low on the daily chart. What was that bloody news? My memory like a sieve, mate. I can't remember, but it drove it down for, you know, like the shortest time.
Yeah.
And we've had a pretty decent old bounce since then. And continuing to put in higher highs and higher lows, apart from on the 4-hour chart on Friday, we put in a lower high. But on the daily chart thus far, as far as I'm concerned, we don't yet have a lower high.
No, it's an interesting chart. Actually.
Today would have to rally big time to make that not a lower high, however. So, yeah, we're kind of in stall mode at the moment, but I think medium term I'm still bullish and bullish up to around about 116.50, 117 area.
Okay, well maybe a little distribution pattern going on here on the 4-hour. But it looks like a tricky chart to read to me. Looks like we got possibly that going on. So maybe with Jerome Powell's speech, we could actually see some euro buying as well. Looks to me like we may have this as a kind of neckline, which looks like a bounce point or a break point. So this is the area of contention when I look at this chart just on price action alone. And I also see that could be a close beneath the monthly pivot if it does actually take out this line maybe slightly later in the week. Yeah. So yeah, let's watch out for the euro. That's tricky, isn't it? Because it looks like it's just trapped between.
I'm not in trade mode. Definitely not in trade mode on the euro. I said that.
So we're looking for a clearer picture on that. I guess definitely. But a trap between the monthly and weekly pivots. I wouldn't like to call that one really either, and particularly with the potential fundamentals of what could happen with Jerome Powell. So let's see that unfold and see what that starts to offer up. Bank of England's inflation report and MPC official bank rate votes. They're looking for everybody to look to leave the rate unchanged. I can't see that being any different. There's nothing really right now that suggests that any movement would be a good idea. Natural gas storage could be.
Given the news
What's
you've
that,
just
mate?
given us earlier on Nissan, for instance,
Yeah.
that's not going to make the bank happy.
No, it's absolutely not going to make the bank happy. Now, Ryanair have also come out and said that if Brexit ends up being ugly, their numbers will not only have been bad, which they are right now, but they could be absolutely shockingly bad the next time around. So, Ryanair are a difficult company to take seriously much of the time, but it's another voice, but behind the weight of an ugly Brexit. So I mean, it's kind of like one of those you don't say kind of thing. But we'll see how that pans out, and whether that makes any difference to the negotiating stance. And then finally, we have Canadian data as well. To me, mate, this is already suggesting, if we're looking at the data points and the releases, it's suggesting to me that this is going to be a tricky week. I mean, you've got Chinese bank holiday all week. You've got a Fed chairman that has started to take more of a dovish stance on the market. And you have got other things going on in the background. Obviously, the Brexit issue always going on and continuing to be bubbling along in the background. This suggests to me a kind of tricky week. And if I'm bringing this back again to the FTSE, this does suggest that there could well be some trades on, because all we need is just that little bit of uncertainty for buying, for those sellers to be allowed back in again and push this market back to the downside, and see if we can just get it held. I think it's going to be kind of choppy, certainly for the first few days. And if it's kind of choppy, that means that we could well see this lower level. We could start to see the price action coming down to that lower level. So I'm expecting a difficult week. So I think getting some really clear signs and signals is going to be maybe a bit more important when I look at those data points and try and read something that could be predictable there.
Well, I think you just said it, predictable. Maybe there's something that we can't predict that will be the driver, the ultimate driver. Maybe there's a Trump statement coming out. Maybe there's no wall to be built. I don't know. Something comes out of left field that may drive us yet. It's entirely possible.
Yeah.
Anything can happen in Brexit, as we know.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there are drivers. It's not like the market is just going to freeze here, because there are drivers. There's enough out there that would suggest that we get movement. It's more of a question of
maybe we
which
have to
way
go back to last week, which had the big drivers: FOMC, NFP.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to look backwards to look forward.
Yeah. NFP was an interesting one, actually. Did you? You had that trade on with NFP, didn't you? The breakout trade?
No, the FOMC I did.
Okay.
I didn't trade Friday, so.
Okay. Yeah,
FOMC is now back out, I think.
Right.
I didn't trade it because I slept through it. But let me see.
It was quite tepid in the end.
Depends what you did with your stops. If you'd taken profit, as I suggested, then you would be out at break even. Yeah, you'd be out at break even. So if you didn't, then you're still in the trade.
Right.
And around about negative something. I can't remember where the Thursday. Yeah, you'd be negative at the moment, but you should have taken profit, as I said. So you shouldn't be in a losing position if you did take the trade. NFP, I don't know if that would have worked out. Let me see. NFP 4-hour chart, euro dollar. I'll just take the screen, shall
I? You got it, mate. Yeah, I've given it to you.
Oh, have I? Okay. So with this FOMC breakout would have completely ruined the trade, I think, because your range if working out, which is the way I do it for the 4 days.
We got no no visuals at the minute.
Really?
No chart. I think as you go back, that's it there.
Got it. Cool. So what I look for is a definite range in the first 4 days of the week. So if that was Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday, the bottom's okay, which would have been about there somewhere. But the top shifted right out to here. Even if you use that as a false break, which is a pretty bold thing to do, I don't think you could bring the range back to there. So there wouldn't have been a trade, mate. I couldn't have traded that as a breakout.
Okay. All right.
I've got to be in a reasonably tight range before I can trade the breakout of it. But yeah, Wednesdays, no problem. Got the breakout. You would have taken profit there at the spike, and then you would have, depending on where you trailed your stop, you would be either out or still in, looking for some further upside, of course. But you've got to take profit once it has broken out. You've got to take profit as soon as it spikes. After you break out. That's the key to it, because it can still come back on you. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You have to remain safe.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much where we're at, mate.
Yeah. Well, the FTSE 100 is currently up 3 pips, 0.05 of 1% to the upside. So it's a tepid day, and pretty much as predicted. I didn't think we are going to get much movement. I didn't think it'd be quite this bad, but so far, nothing to do, mate. I'm still looking for that dip, and I guess it looks a little bit more likely as the confidence to the upside has subsided. So we're just looking for a dip. I think in some respects I'm ready to wrap up. I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm ready to wrap up. I don't have anything to do.
There's nothing more that I can add that I haven't already. I'm still looking for EuroCAD long off a false break of this line here. So that's possible. I'm still looking for a reversal bar here. Would be interesting on Euro Aussie, but yeah, not super keen. What else have I got up my sleeve? Well, we've got the Aussie. Again, I'd rather trade the Aussie long from down here, let it break, find support back above, retest the levels, and then look for the long. But I'm not committed to anything here in terms of direction, because I think we're looking for retracement to go in the opposite direction, really, at the end of the day. And nothing staring out at me like the proverbial DBs. So at this stage, look, it's possible we'll move, but I don't think we'll break out of anywhere. I think we might just hit resistance or support, and look to trade back to the mean. Maybe that might be the go for the day.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, I think I mean, just looking at European stocks right across the board, there's no real movement. There's no real movement in the euro either, and it's just one of those days that you just well, I mean, you could watch. I don't know what you. It's an odd day actually, because it's one of those days that I don't know. I don't know what you'd learn by just looking at this as the price action unfolds at the time. But it's a great day to kind of go back and actually do some work on your charts and on the markets and just get yourself familiar with something. Pick a topic and just get yourself familiar with it. Because you don't always get the opportunity. Most people are sitting down to trade, and this is just not a session. It's not necessarily a day, but it's not a session. Certainly, that there will be any trades that will probably actually get much follow through. You'll probably find a market somewhere which is going to give you something, but it looks like a good day to go and do some work rather than sitting here and watching these charts blankly and hoping for the best.
Well, we'll be having a good old yarn to the lads in about when's that show?
Half an hour, isn't it?
Is it?
I think so.
It used to be. I don't know if it still is. I'll have to check on that. Let me. Where to look now? Is it half? Oh, we've got a meeting then straight away. Then that show. Okay. I don't
Yes.
know what time that is, but if that's confirmed at it's 5:30 Sing, right? Yes. Okay. So
Yes.
it will be in half an hour's time. So I better go and get a drink of water and prepare for a meeting, and then a free show with all the chatties.
Great stuff, mate. All right. Well, I'll speak to you very soon. You know, good and happy education for you all out there. Do some work. It's not a day to take the day off necessarily. Go and do some work and get yourself familiar. But we'll be back tomorrow. Same trade time, same trade channel, mate.
Happy days, mate. We'll see you then. Bye, everyone.